I think we can all agree that the worst part about being an adult is not having enough time for all of our nerdy hobbies. But I've stumbled across something. How we can utilize our time destroying our enemies as superpowered space ninjas to become better miniature painters. Oh, and the miniatures are free. You know, not much beats kicking back and getting stuck in with your favorite video game. Other than when I'm doing that, I can't be miniature painting. But you know what? I don't think we have to choose one or the other. In fact, I think there's a lot we can put to good use with all of those hours played. So in Digital Extremes, creators of the critically acclaimed game Warframe reached out to let me know they'd like to work together on a video to celebrate the launch of their newest update, Warframe 1999, and share the news that they've created miniatures of all the characters that are free to download. Well, hell, I don't need any more excuse than that to try to recreate an awesome scene in a video game into miniature form. That was the plan anyway, but this did not all go as smoothly as I had hoped. You know, video games are wonderful sources of inspiration in any way we want to express ourselves. They've got amazing characters, interesting environments, dramatic lighting, and the ability to move the camera around to analyze the characters and the scene in 3 dimensions. So my plan was to look at all sorts of amazing locations in the world of Warframe and find one that really inspired me to create a miniature scene. And when I saw this one, this organic cave entrance that goes out into a beautiful landscape, I realized that this was the one. So I've got 3 tools at my disposal to recreate the look and feel of this scene. First of all, we've got the miniature itself. Second, we have the base that the miniature is standing on that we can build that terrain that would mimic the scene. But third and finally, and probably most importantly, to really place our character in this scene, we need a background that pulls it all together. And that background's got me a bit nervous. So let's start with something a little bit easier to tackle, and that is the base that our model is standing on. I'm taking 3D printed jagged rocks, and I'm going to glue those down and use 2-part epoxy to fill in the gaps to create a rocky cavern scene that our model is standing in. The actual cavern that I'm drawing inspiration from is a little bit more smooth and has less details, but we want to have some liveliness, something of interest for light to bounce off of for our final model, so that's why I'm going with something a little bit more jagged and edgy. And it's really important to remind yourself that you're drawing inspiration from the source material, but that does not mean you must do a one-to-one replication of that source material. After all, what we're doing here is giving us an excitement and inspiration to begin, and that can often be the hardest part of any creative project. So we've got a cool scene that gets us excited. We can now picture our character in that scene. Let's just get moving. Now I'm actually going to start the painting with the backdrop of our scene, and this is the scariest part for me. I've literally never done one of these before in my life, but I figured if I can just get this hardest part of the project done first, I think the rest of it will really follow suit and I'll have built up some good momentum. Really, the only frame of reference I have for how to paint something in 2 dimensions like this are watching Bob Ross art specials on PBS as a kid. I'm just going to start with vague colors and shapes. First with the airbrush to give us this general purpley, bluey sky tint that our scene has, and then bringing out a brush and figuring out how to sketch on things. You can tell how confident I am going into this process. I did identify from our inspiration scene that there are different depths of field. We've got the sky itself, and then we've got the background with those faint trees in the distance. We've got a middle ground where we see some terrain of trees that have fallen over and maybe some vines and foliage. And then we have our foreground, like the lip of the cave itself, and even more vines and gnarled limbs that are hanging just behind our character. As I'm fumbling my way through this, I'm remembering what it feels like to learn something new in the art form for the first time. Anytime you try something new in miniature painting, it just feels uncomfortable. It feels like you have 0% confidence that it's going to turn out looking decent at all, and you don't know what to do next or what to do if it doesn't look good. Those are natural feelings. We all get those feelings whenever we're doing something new, and that's just the world telling you that you don't know it all yet, and you need practice, you need repetition, and that comfortability will come with time. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but that also doesn't mean this is probably going to turn out looking very good. Both are fine. And the sooner you tell yourself it's okay if it doesn't turn out great, the more you're actually going to enjoy the process. I just tried to open my mind to learning as I made these mistakes. For example, I realized that I started with paint that was probably too thick or too dark compared to the background colors that I had painted before. That way, I didn't get this nice haze between background, middle ground, and foreground that I was going for. It seemed a little too heavy-handed, a little too dark, too quick. In the future, I'll use thinner paint. I'll just mix in a little bit of a darker color as I move on to the next step. I will just make big shapes first. Don't worry about any of the details until you've really defined the composition and the general shapes of your scene. At some point in this process, I felt I didn't 100% hate it, and I made a decision. I said, I'm going to stop here for now. The more that I futz with this, the more I'm likely to get frustrated, look at this entire process in a negative way, and never want to do it again. And that's not the taste in my mouth I want to leave whenever I'm trying something new. So I put it down while it still felt kind of okay, so I can look back at this as something I grew from and I'm looking forward to continue to grow instead of just having hated the entire process. All right, now that I'm done with my confusing do-it-yourself canvas and Chardonnay backdrop, it's time to focus on the base itself. Now, in our scene, Eleanor, our main character, is standing inside of this cave with that light sky behind her. Now, we want to create some contrast of lights and darks, and because there's so many light areas in the backdrop, I'm going to go with a dark scheme for the base. This will make it feel like she's in a dark cavern with some sort of light shining towards her. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to use blacks and dark grays and browns for this. I want there to be a colorful presence and something that ties together that background and our scene, which means I'm going to be using purples, blues, and greens as a starting point to build up some color over our initial white dry brush of the stones. I do decide to use some colder greens and yellows on that base to give some points of interest. Some areas where a little bit more light is hitting than other areas. This will add a little bit more depth to what otherwise is feeling like a flat ground. From there, I'm going to start defining some of those interesting jagged edges with some brighter blues, turquoises, and greens. This is how we're bringing 3 dimensions, depth, and a little bit of interest throughout the piece, including this base, as opposed to just keeping it too flat and boring. I do decide to push it a little bit further on a few areas for the highlights, just because I want there to be an interesting front light that's going to hit Eleanor's face so she's not all covered in shadow. Now that we have our backdrop and our base completed, we've created some ambiance in this scene. We've set a location, one that actually exists in the game. But if I were to go from here and start painting our character, Eleanor, with a tiny paintbrush and individually painting each of her surfaces a different color so her prototype suit looks just like it does in the game, she wouldn't fit in this scene at all. You see, all the lights and interesting colors that are taking place in this scene would also hit any character in the scene. And this is where looking back to the video game can aid us. We can look in 3 dimensions, how the light works, how the highlights are placed, and where they're placed for a really dynamic scene. So what that means is we go back to starting to paint Eleanor really the same way that we painted our base, with a big fat brush and bright colors right over a black primer to create some interesting colors from the get-go. I'm doing what's called wet blending here, where I just slap a color on the model with a brush, grab a new color quick, put that on the model, and I kind of fuzz the 2 colors together to blend them while they're still wet on the model. I realized that in order for us to get a lighting angle and intensity for this model, I'm not going to be able to just start off of this place. So what I do is I take my airbrush out and I do a zenithal light with white ink in the front and off to the side, right over top of these interesting dark colors. This now tells us where the darker and the brighter areas are going to be on Eleanor, so she creates a dramatic scene. The downside is all that white ink we just sprayed mostly just covered up our first step. So what I'm going to do is repeat the first step with one small difference. This time, I'm going to add a brush full of water to my brush before I add the color to it, and then I put it on the model. This way, that paint will be slightly thinned and it won't completely cover those areas that the white ink touched. This will bring back our color, add that interesting variation across the model while still showing where the light and the shadow are hitting her. I definitely think that I'm going to add this to my bag of tricks as a way to create interesting color depth quickly in any miniature. It's really, really cool to be able to add some dark, interesting colors right over a black primer, add that white zenithal, and then come back in again and reestablish your colors while creating the depth and seeing all the details of the model before you start defining them with unique, interesting colors. At this point, you're probably thinking Eleanor here looks like she was finger painted by a kindergartner, and you wouldn't be wrong, but we have our foundation. But where do we go from here? And the answer is, I'm not sure, but we're going to figure it out together. One key is we want whatever colors are already on this model to stay and influence whatever we put on top of them. So what I'm going to do is take my time and use paint that's thinned quite a bit, usually with equal parts paint to water, maybe even a bit more water, to make sure that our paint isn't too opaque as we're building over top of these initial colors. And when I do work like this, I typically like to make my paint too thin rather than too thick. If it's too thin and I'm putting on a coat and I realize it's not really covering much at all, I can always add a little bit more paint to that mixture. But if I have it too thick and it just completely covers that greenish yellow over her face, well, then it's like we never did that work to begin with. Now, the good news here is because this scene is really centered around creating striking ambiance amongst all of the things in the scene, we're not going to go into a ton of detail in painting every tiny thing that's on Eleanor, but her face is the focus of this piece. It needs to be more refined than anything else, so our eyes are drawn there. I just keep building brighter and brighter skin tone on that skin while keeping the area that's mostly in shadow still showing some of that green, to really show how the shadows are not just black, but they're this interesting turquoise, greenish blue color. She does have some interesting black and white streaks in her hair, so what I do is take a black contrast paint and draw in those black streaks. Because contrast paint is somewhat transparent, it's still going to show those highlights underneath, so it's a lot easier for us to showcase the texture and the highlights built up with this paint over a standard black paint. Well, this interesting sci-fi suit that Eleanor is wearing is a Warframe. Well, technically it's a proto-frame, one of the initial concept frames that had eventually become the extremely customizable war suits of death in the game. It's got a lot of interesting organic shapes. There's a lot of line work. There's a lot of details on this proto-frame, but I do not want to get stuck in all the minutia here. In this natural environment Eleanor is in, all of those tiny details would not be fully visible and highlighted to the nth extreme. All I'm doing is mixing a gray paint with just a touch of the contrast paint that I use as the first undertones, and I'm using that to build up some volumes and some edge highlights to help define the three-dimensional aspect of the suit. And because we're mixing in a little bit of that contrast paint that we use as our initial undertones, we get a nice natural highlight from those midtones and the shadows up to more defined highlight shapes. It really makes this work go quickly, and you can kind of see how you can go from the purple to the blue to the turquoise to the green to the greenish yellow pretty quickly just by learning to mix a couple of those contrast paints with the same light gray. You know, one thing that I need to continually remind myself in this miniature painting hobby is that more brushstrokes do not equate to a better looking final model. I could easily overpaint this model, paint every single thing with 4 or 5 layers of details and highlights, but honestly, because we're focused on the scene, the ambience, and really directing your eye towards the head and shoulder region of Eleanor and that bright halo of light from the sky behind her, so instead of worrying about every single tiny detail, I'm just embracing the fact that I'm having more fun painting with bold colors, trying to paint something that feels like a scene instead of trying to paint something that's methodical and monotonous. And relating this back to video games, I don't know about you, but the games that I enjoy most aren't necessarily the ones that stress me out the most. They're the ones that are more enjoyable moment to moment while I'm playing them. I create great memories, and I'm really happy with the character that I've created and I've built up over their history because of those moment to moment victories. And I think all hobbies, miniature painting included, should feel that way. And in video games, there's that moment of satisfaction when you've completed your build. You really know that this form of this character is the epitome of how I want to play them. And I'm kind of hoping that this miniature painting project works the same way, that when I pull the backdrop and the base and the character together, it will all be in sync and looks like they belong together. I really hope it does. Honestly, this final process of putting these 3 pieces together and hoping that they work and they feel cohesive is a nervous and kind of exciting thing. Typically, when you paint a model, it's already glued to its base, and as you're painting, you kind of know what it's going to end up looking like. There is no aha moment. At the end is when you decide you're done, and it is what it is. But this was different, and it turned out like this. Honestly, for me, I look at this thing and I feel joy, because it's a culmination of 2 hobbies, 2 things that are a passion for me, and I'm able to bring them together. I've always loved art in different forms. I'm so lucky to have found miniature painting as my outlet, and I've been playing video games since before the original Nintendo Entertainment System even existed. And to bring both of those passions together in one project just feels amazing. I sure hope that you can find something that inspires you, that you're passionate about, a different hobby that you have, and you can find a way to integrate it into your miniature painting. And how great is it that our hobby has grown to the level that it has, that there are amazing companies like Digital Extremes that are willing to create their own STL files for miniatures and give them out to us for free. It's pretty awesome. So a big thank you to them for that, and thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. The links to the free files are below, as well as a link to Warframe itself. Now that their newest update, Warframe 1999, is live, it's a great time to try out the amazing game that Warframe is, and as always, it's 100% free to play. I truly appreciate all of you and the support that you bring to this channel by subscribing to it, by liking the videos, by picking up your hobby tools, paints, miniatures via the links below, often at a discount to you, and joining me over on the Ninja on Patreon. We got a lot of fun stuff going on. You get a lot of fun rewards for your support that really allows me to continue to pump out these videos on a regular basis, always for free here on YouTube. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to spend a little bit of my time over the holidays decapitating aliens with a katana. Yeah, that's in the video game. But if you know of a way that I could do that in real life, that'd be cool too. I'll be back before you know it with another new video. Just make sure that sometime between now and then, you find time in your day to slay the gray.